Hey everybody, happy Thursday. I hope you are doing well. For those of you that are new, my name is Susan. I am a freelance fiction editor specializing in science fiction, fantasy, and romance. So last week I talked about the difference between first-person point of view, third-person point of view, or at least third-person limited point of view, and what you might want to consider, which one you might want to go with, depending on the needs of your book, your style, everything like that. But it occurred to me in talking about that it might be useful to also mention head hopping as an issue that a lot of authors may not necessarily consider but should pay attention to both as they're writing and in the editorial process. So head hopping is when you're writing a chapter or chapters from one person's point of view, but you accidentally slip into another character's emotions, thoughts, or actions. And this can be jarring to readers as they're going through because they were in the point of view of that one main character and then suddenly are switched to another, and it can cause confusion in your storyline. This can happen in any manuscript, but it especially happens when authors are writing in third-person limited point of view. So for those of you that are currently writing or are considering writing in third-person limited point of view for your story, this is something that you should keep an eye on and pay attention to as you're working your way through. I know most of you are thinking, duh, I write from my main character's point of view, why would I write from someone else's point of view? But you'd be surprised how often and how easily sometimes head hopping can slip in when you're writing. The big errors to catch are when we're suddenly hearing a different character, so not the point of view you were writing that chapter in originally, but a different secondary character's thoughts, seeing what they see, gaining their knowledge, because then you're gaining insight from that character, not from your main character, not from the point of view you were originally writing in. And it's something that the main character couldn't or shouldn't know, so it's going to feel different. It's going to feel out of place. These bigger errors, like I said, the pieces of knowledge that our main character wouldn't normally have, is probably something that as you're reading a second way through, you're probably going to catch. But there are smaller cues that can slip in for head hopping as well. Specifically, quick moment actions and emotions that only the secondary character can feel or do. These can be harder to catch because it's not like it's a big moment. It's not a full paragraph. It's not a full interaction or part of the scene where you completely switch to someone else's point of view. It's a brief moment where there's no reason the main character should know that that secondary character was feeling hurt, or that they were scared, or that they backed away, or anything like that. And it doesn't have to be very long, but it's still something that you have to consider if you are in the main character's point of view and they don't know the secondary character that well, or they can't see them or anything like that, and you're showing that, that means you're taking them out of the main character's perspective. You're taking them out of that third-person limited or whatever point of view you're in, and you're putting them in that secondary character's point of view, no matter how briefly. And again, that can be very jarring and confusing because it brings up questions of whose head am I really in? Which way is my main character facing? How did they see that? How could they know? And it's important to have that as streamlined as possible to make sure your readers aren't confused and aren't wanting to put the book down because of it. So the biggest reason that head hopping generally happens is because your writer brain, either consciously or subconsciously, has realized that you need to show your reader something for the comprehension of the scene, the plot, anything like that, that they cannot be shown through the main character's point of view, whatever that may be. Or maybe it's a situation where the main character can't know it or shouldn't know it. Again, sort of like the emotions or the actions that I was talking about before. If this is the case, it might need to be something that you need to rework the scene to figure out how to show from your main character's perspective, or it might be you need to add more point of views to your story. So obviously when writing in third-person limited point of view, you are talking about he, she, they, them, and for that one chapter, whatever chapter it may be, you are in that person's point of view, and that's solely what you can see. But that doesn't mean in the next chapter or at a chapter break, you can't switch to a new character. You are just making that one-to-one switch. So switching point of views at a break or at a chapter is not head hopping. It's when you switch in the middle of a chapter and there is no delineation, there is no signal to the reader. That's when it can cause confusion and problems. So to play off my example from last week, and if you haven't had a chance to go back and take a look at that video, I highly recommend it, especially if you're still considering how you want to write your next story, third person limited versus first person, everything like that. I will put the link above me somewhere so that you can check that out. But As I was talking about last week, for an example, if you are writing a story and your main character is a baker, but the plot is a murder mystery and a lot of it happens at a police station or wherever it needs to be that's not a bakery, is your baker going to be able to give the reader enough of a view of the world of the investigation on their own to show the story? You don't want a situation where a cop always has to be coming into the bakery to explain what's happened or what's going on to make sure the main character is up to date on what's going on. You always want as much action on the page from the point of view of whatever main character you're in as possible. As well as then obviously that avoids info dumping, which everybody knows we want to avoid as much as possible as well. You also don't accidentally want to hear or see or have the cop do anything that the main character isn't seeing from their point of view. You don't want to accidentally head hop to the character to be able to find out that he thought the guy was suspicious or something like that when the main character wouldn't know, the baker wouldn't know because she wasn't at the station when he was arrested. Things like that. So in that example, you would probably either want to make your main character the cop or have a dual point of view from third person limited showing the baker's point of view and the cop's point of view to be able to get that rounded vision of the story, but not have to head hop back and forth and not have to miss out on things if you only chose one or the other. So choosing your point of view wisely, choosing how many characters' points of view you have is key because you want to make sure you as a writer are not being forced to figure out how to put information in either via info dumping or accidentally head hopping or anything like that that your main character wouldn't naturally know, or switching it again like we talked about to multiple POVs to be able to fix that and then have it still from that third person limited or first person, however you're writing it from that point of view. This is all just a key component to making sure your story is as clear as possible, it's not confusing to your readers, so your readers can stay as engaged with your main character as possible and really get excited about the story as they go. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I would absolutely love to hear from you. If you have a chance or you haven't yet, like, subscribe. It really helps the channel, and until next week, keep writing.